Today, I'd just like to talk about an incident that has caused some discussion lately concerning the firing of a Catholic school teacher. His name was Michael Califano. He was a third grade teacher at Maria Regina School in Seaford, here on Long Island. The parents were very upset about the firing. They liked Michael. They thought he was a very good teacher. Also, the Sisters of St. Joseph in Brentwood, who have extensive experience in education, also raised some concerns about the firing and were wondering why it occurred. Michael went to school when he was younger at the school that he taught at Maria Regina, a member of the parish. We find out that the pastor really didn't want to fire him, and the school principal didn't want to fire him. So why was he fired is the question that comes up. The Bishop John Barras, insisted on the firing, and it was done by a representative from the Department of Education at the direction of the bishop. And there was a protest about this. 100 parents showed up at St. Agnes, which is the residence of the bishop of the diocese, and they protested about the firing. One parent even said that he would take his child out of the school. He was so upset about the firing. Others said they would decrease the money they contributed to the parish. The representative from the diocese issued a statement saying the school did not end Mr. Califano's employment over his sexuality, which is a statement that, when you look at it, you say that's kind of a crazy statement. I mean, why would anybody be fired over their sexuality? We are male, we are female, we have sexuality. It wouldn't be an issue of firing someone over their sexuality, so the statement seemed empty and meaningless. Apparently, there was a Facebook post by a partner, a good friend of Mr. Califano's, who was male, in which the two were kissing. It was not on Mr. Califano's Facebook page, but on his friends. And so people are just speculating, well, maybe that was the issue, this Facebook posting. But again, that's kind of a weird thing to fire somebody over. He was told when he met with the representative from the Department of Education that he was not living a Catholic lifestyle. But what specifically does that mean, and how does it relate to your ability as a teacher? To live a Catholic lifestyle means to embrace the teachings of the Catholic faith, which apparently Mr. Califano did. Means to also practice your faith, which apparently Mr. Califano did too. He was in church every Sunday and very active in his parish. And so exactly how he was not living a Catholic lifestyle, perhaps the thought was maybe he was married to his partner, which we don't have any indication that that was the case. But even if that was the case, Pope Francis recently talked about blessings for same-sex couples in certain circumstances, of course. So again, it doesn't seem to make sense, not living a Catholic lifestyle, and again, kind of vague, so leaving the teacher and the parents kind of confused. There's a couple of things that kind of are jarring here in terms of Catholic social teaching. Catholic social teaching really embraces the rights of the worker to organize and unionize and to get a fair wage for a fair day's work. And Catholics who teach in Catholic schools really embrace that in an extraordinary way, because they really are teaching in the same manner as their counterparts in public schools at a much lower rate of pay. And sometimes one would say probably not even a living wage. So you look at it and say, well, are we really being consistent with Catholic social teaching when we fire somebody and don't really give them an adequate explanation. Of course, with our laws in the United States, there is no real protection for those who teach in private schools. They are considered to be ministers, and so they can be fired at will by and really for no reason at all by their employers, so that their protections are very minimal. And the thought is a lot of times they're even discouraged from forming unions and participating in unions. So even those protections that a union might afford, they might not have. Uh, One of the things that this brings up is this consistent with the teaching of the Catholic Church? The Catholic Church teaches that there should be no discrimination against homosexuals or lesbians or those with same-sex attraction. So why is the church discriminating against them? Uh, if in this case that's the reason, and again, we don't know the specific reason. Uh, Everything has been kind of vague and shrouded with regard to it. It does raise that question. Are we practicing what we teach? Are we really embracing our teachings? Uh, we should not be discriminating against those who are homosexual. I mean, the church's teaching on that is very clear. So why is there this type of discrimination? Is it the thought that maybe it would give scandal to parents? But here, on the other hand, we have the scandal really caused by the firing more than by the teacher and the teacher's activities outside of the classroom. I mean, it's the parents are much more upset about this, and apparently it was reported not by one of the parents, or maybe we don't exactly know because it was an anonymous letter that was sent about this Facebook posting that perhaps led to this. And again, we don't know all the details on it, and so a lot of this is just speculation, but it seems to raise the question, are we being consistent in terms of embracing the teaching of the Catholic Church with regard to no discrimination against those who are homosexual or lesbian or have same-sex attraction? Raises really two other questions that I think are significant in this case. The first is the question of synodality. Our Pope, of course, has been encouraging the synodal approach. We just had the Synod on synodality. And part of synodality is really meeting with people, discussing issues with them, listening to them. And there doesn't seem to be that process really taking place here. This, we would say, is more of what we would call a hierarchical model of church than a synodal process of church. And a hierarchical model would be that, the bishop speaks and everybody kind of listens to the bishop, or in this case, the bishop's representative. There's no real dialogue, genuine dialogue between the bishop or the bishop's representative and the person. It's kind of a fait accompli. You're going to be fired. This is why you're fired. It's about your lifestyle. Very vague reason given. And it bypasses really the principal, the parents, the students, the pastor, all of those who are on that local level that you would think would be part of a synodal process of discernment of this teacher. And perhaps there are other issues, but why wasn't there a process? And it really seemed to catch the pastor and the principal and the parents off guard, which is a bit unusual in a firing situation. And again, we don't know all the details, so perhaps there is some other reason that we're just not aware of, but it does raise the question about synodality. And the other question it raises similarly would be the principle of subsidiarity, which is a principle that's very important in Catholic social justice teaching, that those matters that can be handled on a lower level should be handled on that level and not raised to a higher level of authority. And certainly with subsidiarity, it would seem that a matter like this would have been handled on the local level by the principal, by the pastor, by the parents in concert. If there were serious objections about the teacher. So this process of the firing of Mr. Califano raises some questions about really the church's teaching, how to be church, and the Catholic social justice approach, because really it doesn't seem like that the teaching of the Catechism of the Catholic Church about non-discrimination was followed. Doesn't seem like a synodal approach was taken, where there was a genuine dialogue of those who would be affected and an opportunity to explain and to listen to one another. It seems more like a hierarchical approach. The bishop speaks, and that's it. And then the principle of subsidiarity was certainly violated because those who were closest to the situation, who knew the teacher the best, were really not consulted in this process and were caught off guard and were surprised by the decision. So I think a number of questions are raised by this, and it would be important to kind of have a dialogue about this and why weren't the teachings of the church followed more closely in the situation.